Welcome to Agronomy Moment. I'm your host, Wendell Koehn. We bring in people who agree with me, disagree with me, and above all, are not afraid to say it like it is.
Welcome back, everybody, to Agronomy Moment. Scott Dickey's joining me here on another podcast. Now, I want to talk about something that affected us last year. Some of you may have been quite affected by the caterpillars, not worms. They're worms. We call them worms. That were out in the soybean fields last year. And the challenges we had sometimes was some of the modes of action we're using in the last few years, they did not work. It could have been application, could have been timing, could have been rain the next day. There's so many reasons that could have happened, and I don't think it's fair to just totally say that. But I did want to talk about that a little bit and also talk about some products or modes of action that you could consider going forward and why they work. So, Scott, how much you cheat up? Absolutely. So, as you're pulling that up, I want to just kind of touch on that. What are some good practices? I guess that's probably what I want to start out with. Is we won't dive into some products, but when you're applying insecticide, what are some things to know? I guess the limitations.
Maybe not so much a limitation, but I think one of the key things is to think about that timing of application. You know, when you look at long-term PFR studies, even outside of PFR, that R3 time frame is still going to be the sweet spot. Okay. Because typically you're going to be applying it with a fungicide. Now, granted, we have guys that make applications of insecticide with their herbicide, right? Which is great. I'm fine with that. I know maybe that's not all IRM approved, but hey, IPM, there you go. IRM. Yeah. So IPM approved, but you know, when we're thinking about targeting bugs and diseases, that R3 time frame is still a sweet spot. And especially on the fungicide side of it, there's a steep curve, correct, to that sweet spot at R3, that 10-day window. Yes. So that's one. I think another thing is thinking about time of day. You know, we've shown over and over again that earlier in the day, before it gets to the heat of the day, it's still going to be your sweet timing day-wise. So if you have the ability to determine when your application will make, that's another thing.
Insecticide is also...
Yeah, any applications would make
those foliar.
Even foliars.
Yes.
Any foliar.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Fertility, pest, whatever.
Yeah. And then the other thing to think about is what kind of modes of action we might be getting with the products we're using. Yeah, just like herbicides, there's different modes of actions with insecticides. You know, the big one we use over and over and over again is pyrethroids. Yes. And is bifenthrin a pyrethroid?
Bifenthrin is a pyrethroid. So something like a warrior. Yep. You know, so within even the pyrethroids, there's differences in longevity of how long they're going to hang around. I think that's why you see bifenthrin be so effective for a lot of the things we do, especially if you're in concern of having a problem with spider mites. You know, because bifenthrin is effective on those spider mites. Typically, and I think that has more to do with how long it can kind of hang around. Okay, that's one of the components of that. Yeah. And I may be mistaken, somebody can call me out. That's always been my take, is that it's more effective because of that.
And so then I want to talk about is because you bring up this point of the effectiveness and longevity, but there's also something else that the different modes of action can do for us, and that is the target pest. Mm-hmm. Not all insecticides target the same things, and some do good in one, but not in the other, or vice versa, right? Okay, so tell me a little bit about a bifenthrin. What's its target pest that would be controlled?
I think pyrethroids in general is a do-all. Okay, they're going to kill beetles. They can kill worms. Okay, caterpillars. They can kill basically a lot of the stuff out there. Yeah. But I think if I'm going after stink bug, beetle, I'm probably going to use one of the pyrethroids after that.
But then what about the challenge we were facing with the worms last year in the soybeans?
So you would find these worms on the labels of the standard pyrethroids. Correct. There are other products out there. Chlorantraniliprole, which is a product, a Rynaxypyr product. What was the siege?
Elevus is a tube. It has bifenthrin and Rynaxypyr.
So these products that contain the chlorantraniliprole type products are highly effective on lepidopterans, which are moths that began as worms or caterpillars. So for podworm, earworm.
But if you went out there with just a regular Rynaxypyr, we would be weak on the stink bugs.
Yes, sir.
So that's where we want to make sure that we're thinking about what we have out there, target pest.
So to me, our year in and year out problem child for beans is going to be green stink bug.
Okay.
That's probably our biggest hit.
How do they damage us so bad? Like, what is the reason why it's a stink bug and not?
So I think you and
Japanese beetles.
you and I have talked about this stuff in the past. When it comes to bugs, you have leaf feeders, and you have pod feeders. And that's why green stink bugs are so severe, is because they're pod feeders. And so anything they do as far as their feeding damage is direct yield loss. Because where they syringe into the pod with their piercing sucking mouth part, kills the bean. Works like a jet beetle. He's feeding on leaves. The Japanese beetles just chew on leaves, and it takes a significant amount of leaf feeding to result in a yield hit.
Okay. So therefore, the Japanese beetle isn't going to eat pods.
Right.
I mean, not substantially.
I've never seen them do that. Okay. So our pod feeders of primary concern are sometimes grasshoppers, but typically bean leaf beetle, green stink bug, and soybean podworm.
Okay. The podworm being the caterpillars, all those type of things that I see naturally.
Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that the sum of all the bugs in the field don't end up causing us a yield hit, but it's rare to see a 20% defoliation from leaf feeders. And after reproductive growth, it takes 20% defoliation across the field to typically result in an economic impact to the yield.
So, talking about worms just a little bit more though, we're going to draw a line on the damage of what like podworms do the damage, but it's not like the clover worm. They don't do as well. They're leaf eaters.
The only worm,
or like clover worm, inchworm. What do they call those? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, green clover worm. Yep, green clover worm. You also have loopers.
Yeah, loopers. That's what I was thinking.
Loopers. Those are all leaf feeders. I'm probably going to mess this up, but to me, the main worm that's a pod feeder that we worry about is soybean podworm. There could be a couple others out there, but it's podworms.
Army worm, for example, or whatever. But it's army worm is a leaf feeder. So really, the army worm's damage is solely from it. Just they mow. There's so many. They can be so many.
Well,
and they mow it down.
They're going to get you. If you get a mass of those guys, they're going to
mow you down.
Yeah, they might eat pods too. They eat everything green.
That's right.
But we just don't see that in soybean like that very often. There's multiple species of army worms that give everything a yellow stripe and different ones that can do some damage, but I'm not typically going to be as worried about them. The podworms can be a big deal, but they're defoliators.
So again, you're going back to is that direct yield loss, the podworms, stink bugs, and bean leaf beetles.
And occasionally grasshoppers.
Okay, that makes sense.
You can usually tell it's grasshopper feeding because their feeding is so trashy. They chew and grind away and leave a lot of just junk, whereas the worms eat clean. And stink bug just in surface. So it's hard to even see where they did their damage when it happens.
And then so as we look at these insecticides that we're choosing, like I don't want to say the name, Rynaxypyr technology. If we would just go out there with just that product and we had stink bugs, we might suppress them, but we're not going to control.
I think if you look at their label, there's going to be. They may even be listed as control, but I think as far the LFS product, I like that. That's what you're getting the bifenthrin. It's highly effective on the beetles, and you're also getting the chlorantraniliprole. To take. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that one correctly. It's a tough one.
It is. I'm not trying right
now.
But
those two combined would be a highly effective, although more expensive treatment. But in the long run, we had guys that try to make 2 applications to try to take podworms out. I think you're going to be in pretty good shape with one good, well-timed shot of an expert type product.
Fair enough. Anything else to know about this topic?
I think the only other thing is you think about longevity of products. It's dictated. The ability of the bugs to reproduce. It's all dictated by environment. We could have one of the most heavy populations of podworms you've ever seen, but if we get wet, and the green clover worm carries a fungus in their body, and when you get wet environments, that fungus rampages through the canopy. It's probably the most effective insecticide you've ever seen. You can take out all those podworms in a heartbeat. So if we're in a year where we have podworms as a problem, and it rains, or we start into a cool period where we have heavy dews late into the day, I would start looking for mummy worms. And what they will be is they'll be covered in white mold. Typically their body will be reared back off of the leaf like a horse rearing back. And that's a characteristic of that disease, causes them to do that because it allows better airflow around their body through the canopy to spread the spores to cause infection, and you will take out every worm in that field very rapidly with the Mary O'Reilly is the name of that fungus.
And I seen it last year, and I can throw up a picture. I'll throw up a picture on that here, and the way you can see what it looks like. But yes, it's a very interesting type of disease. And then the last thing, I was reminded of this as we were saying, just as we close, is to remember insecticides, longevity in the field. There are some differences between insecticides, but by and large, rain reduces efficacy.
I would say reduces longevity.
Longevity?
Yeah.
Okay. Longevity. And
which, yes, technically would decrease efficacy.
But then basically that is one thing, and insecticide doesn't last forever. I mean, it's like 2-3 weeks at max. Yeah. I've seen times where it seemed like within 10 days, back again.
Yep.
Yeah. So just good practices are time the R3. And one of the things I thought, maybe I'll just wrap up. I keep wrapping up here.
Sure.
But one thing I keep thinking about now too is what my experience has been on my own self. Is just my own testimony of this. Is when we spray at R3, you have to help me out here. We have the majority of our yield producing parts, nodes of the bean are present.
100% of your nodes have developed by R3.
They're quite tender a lot of times yet. But what happens when we apply that and knock out the bug population? By the time we would have the potential for infestation. Generally, this is not. I mean, it's not everything exactly.
Starting an agronomist.
Well, I've listened to a lot. I'm trying to listen, but basically, what happens then is that it seems like the plant toughens up.
Right.
It gets harder to attack.
They harden off the way.
Yeah, they do. They harden off.
Pods get more developed.
Yeah.
Pubescence on. The thing about a lot of the pests we have, there are differences by variety and by timing of stage of development.
Okay.
And their, I'll call it palatability
Yes.
for the insects, which changes the attractiveness of those plants to the mothers, for example, podworm.
That's right.
So our number one target for a field to scout for podworm would be late planted fields or double crop fields because they tend to have an open canopy, more luscious tissues. Later in the year when those guys are coming back, they're going to be landing in that open canopy to lay their eggs.
That's a good point because I remember last year walking fields that had replant, and so you'd have these areas where there was some older beans from way early. Mm-hmm. And I just always noted that as how they attacked the new, younger ones. And they knew where it was, even though across the field you had to really look to know by stage. You'd look at the crop stage kind of to know which bean you were looking at. But the moths knew which was the young weed.
They're pretty effective.
Yes, that's right. So just interesting thing to add on to that so we understand maybe the limitations of insecticide or like how long it lasts, that type of thing. And also be aware of the different modes of action and what they control. Thank you for watching us today. We'll see you next time. So, what? I thought it turned out well.
Yeah, I thought it was fine.
If you were Scott Dickey now, you would say something like, "It's about time for lunch."
What else? Starving.
You're starving?
Yes.
What would he call it, Selena? What does he say? Grub or something? He calls it something else. He doesn't say, "Let's go for lunch." He says, "I'm
I don't know.
ready for something." Call it.
Yeah, Scott, I don't.
You don't know what's going to come out. Exactly. But I wish he was here. We could have made a really nice roundtable discussion and
Hey, I got selected.
Field Agronomist of the Year.
No.
It's your turn again.
For wave 1 of the whiskey.
It's almost bean time. So I got splinters over here. Okay. It's almost bean time.
Lunch, yes.
Scott always brings it. Well, it's 11:30. It's 12 almost.
Camera is still rolling. No, it's not. Oh, God.
I got that splinter dissected out.